this innocuous-looking old man was actually gang-stalking me, and it wasn't until I took a picture of him and looked at it that I found that he was more unusual. I'll first detail what was actually happening. I was waiting for a bus, and he turned up, and it was absolutely raining really hard, throwing it down. He didn't come under the shelter. He stood outside the shelter, and he had this huge golf umbrella, and he kept twirling it round, and he kept walking backwards and forwards. And as I'm obviously used to being burnt, whenever, on the occasions that I do get burnt, it's usually when I'm sitting around, not doing anything. So I'm very cautious about people acting a little bit conspicuous. So I saw him come in behind the bus shelter, so I moved. This isn't a glass shelter, it's opaque. I moved to the other side, and what did he do? He just moved to the other side. There was no way he could have seen me. I could see him. I was looking behind. And then I moved to the other side, and then he went back. And it was really odd. And then what happened? It gets weirder. Then what happened is he kept looking at me, and then he decided to come into the bus shelter, and he stood really close to me, still with the umbrella up. I didn't notice the writing on the umbrella at the time. I just thought it's a man with a golf umbrella. And it stood inside the shelter with a huge golf umbrella up. And there was writing on the golf umbrella, like when you buy an umbrella that already has writing on it. A name of a country club or something, or a golf club. And then he stood very near me, and I took this quick picture. And this is actually his face there. He seemed angry at me for some reason. He didn't know I took the picture. I didn't notice this on his face till later, and his behaviour got even stranger. And I'll tell you what was written on the umbrella. He was definitely a gangstalker, make no mistake about it, because I'll explain about his behaviour and also what was written on the umbrella, which they must have paid to have done professionally. Well, let's just have a look at him first of all, this innocent-looking, not so innocent-looking person. Right, this is the very, very odd thing on his face, which it looks like a woman with her hand to her mouth and long hair. And that is just like the lines on his face there, which is very odd. It's not a very clear picture, it's a poor camera. But look at his eyes, and look at his hair, right? He's got white hair, yeah? He's got very white, grey hair. But look at his eyebrows. First, before we look at his eyes, they were actually either dyed or penciled on. They're really dark. And you look at the other one, it's not done properly. It's got a big black line on it. I don't know why anybody would have white hair and so you get a bit more light and do their eyebrows like that. You know, I noticed that when he was stood near me, that the eyebrows, they were odd. They were like he was, you know, going, like he was put makeup on or something. So you look at his eyebrows, they're odd. And look at, so you got this man with this thing on his face that looks like a woman with hair, very odd. And then you have these strange eyebrows that are not the same colour as his hair, that are obviously dyed or drawn on. And then you have the eyes, which I noticed were very odd, and they've got white underneath them. But the white underneath them seemed whiter than the white of the eye. If you look at it, it stands out very, very bright. I did notice there was something odd about his eyes. Don't know if he's wearing some kind of lenses or something, but the white underneath his eyes, which is quite a rare trait in people anyway, is whiter than the actual white of the eyes, if you like. And very, very, very odd things that I noticed about this man, especially this later on. But what was written on the umbrella, I'll tell you what he did. So I've explained what he did at that bus stop. Now, I'm beginning to know things aren't quite right. I'm being gang stalked, yeah? I still hadn't noticed what was written on the umbrella. And I decide to go to a bus stop that is not going to the same place as this bus stop that this man's here. Yeah? And so it's going to a completely different place. And I walk there, and then he leaves this bus stop where I took this photograph, very discreetly. I don't think he knew I took it. And he starts to come to the bus stop that's going into a completely different place. And at this point, I do start to video him discreetly because he's acting very strange. He's twirling the umbrella around. He wanted to get my attention. He's walking about in front of me with this huge umbrella. Then I notice that on the umbrella, the writing is actually my cat's name. If you've listened to my other audios, you'll find that that is the name, one of the names they used to gang stalk me. And they killed my pet cat. And they used that name to gang stalk me and to harass me with it, and they have done for a couple of years. And this is not near my home, by the way. That's about 15 miles from my home where this happened. And he had that name, which isn't a common name of any golf club or anything that I can think of. And he had my cat's name on his umbrella. And I noticed that. And I knew I was right to take the photograph. And I knew that my instincts were correct. And he actually boarded that bus, which was going to a completely different place than the other one. And I obviously didn't get on it. But in the video I took, he looks at me and he walks up to me. And not really close, but close enough that I noticed what was on the umbrella. And he turns his back to me and he puts it where the writing is, where I can see it. So that becomes clear that was the whole purpose of him wandering about and twirling his umbrella around and trying to get my attention. Obviously, I didn't want to come too close with it, but he had to do, because me being like a bit of a numbskull didn't get it right away. So he had to really, follow me to another bus stop that's going to a completely different place. Highly unlikely that all these coincidences would occur. So there you have this apparently normal looking person until you get very close up to him and you see that his eyebrows are dyed or penciled on. One of them not very well, if you look there. And that he's got white underneath his eyes, which is whiter than the actual whites of his eyes. So he may be wearing some kind of contacts. And he's also got this really strange formation in his face there, which it's very odd. I don't know if that's just a trick of the light or if it's something that David Icke talks about when he talks about shapeshifting and electromagnetics, that archons take shape electromagnetically from the level of form, where the atoms, molecules form electromagnetically, that's how they change things and that's how they shapeshift. And this man he seemed annoyed. And when he came over, I took this photograph. If he's telepathic, which apparently these people are meant to be telepathic, then he would have known I took the photo, even though I was discreet about it. So maybe that was causing this to occur. Maybe this is what David Icke calls the shape-shifting beginning. It's not a very clear photo, but it's definitely there. And like the subliminal comments on the back of the tracks that they sent me, and the subliminals that they use a lot of the time in recordings and transmissions, when you record them at first look, like when it first look this, you won't see it, will you? No, of course not. But the longer you look at it, the more clear and distinct it becomes. If you change the shading on your viewer, the contrast, you'll be able to see it clearer. And so it's the same with this is how they do it with the, I don't know about this. This could be a trick of the light. It just seems a little bit strange that this man was definitely gang stalking me, going out of his way to do it, and he's got all these other odd traits about him. And which may be deliberately mocked up to make me believe this. I don't know. I don't really know that. But with the audio, yeah, the more you listen to it, the clearer the actual dialogue becomes. When you first play it, it's hard to make out what it is. After a while, you become sensitized to it. Just like looking at this. After a while, you can pick this out really clearly. But when you first start to look at it, it just looks like some sort of wrinkles or bumps or something on his face. But the longer you look at it, the more it becomes clear that it is looks like a woman's face or a creature's face with hair, and they're propping the mouth up with a hand or something. And that's the same with the audio. The more you listen to it, the more you can make out the words of it. Or so it seems. Maybe that's a trick that is played on the human brain because it works that way, and it can be easily covered up and lied about. Oh no, that's just accidental, you know, it's just a trick of the lie, or it's just a trick of sound, or you know. Okay, so I thought I'd tell that story. I'm obviously not going to put the full video on yet. It's difficult for me to do because I would need another phone to play the video and video it from that phone if I'm going to put dialogue on it or commentary. And I can't use any sequencer or editing on a computer because I'm going to put a track on what they did basically with one of my tracks. They just slowed it down and ruined it. And they're just trying to ruin everything that I do that's creative. So I will need to get some effective Faraday cage before I start using computer again, and actually putting the computer back together, because it was so bad I took the computer apart so that they wouldn't be able to interfere with stuff on it. Right, so there you go. And yeah, I will put the video on with the umbrella. I'm going to blur out the name on the umbrella, obviously, because I don't want, you know, it's like a bandwagon, isn't it? You know, if people know what is being said, you know, people are just going to say it all the more and stuff. And obviously with evidence, you know, you don't reveal too much evidence, because then it's hard to work out who is on the bandwagon and who is the instigators of it. But yeah, this is what this man did. And also, I'll tell you what happened as well. There was, when I got on a completely different bus, what happened is this car, when I got off a white Mercedes and it had the registration, it was in front of me, and it had the registration M15 GHQ or GCQ or something like that. And I thought, they're having a laugh, you know. That was a white Mercedes, quite a new one. Okay, there you go. One little last look at that. Okay, thank you. God bless.